Hey folks, John here from A is for Alcoholic once again. Today's conversation is with Dr. Dustin Dunbar. He has a PhD and MA in psychology from Saybrook University. He has worked as a life coach, crisis counselor, and health counselor, mental health counselor all over the United States. He was nice enough to come on and talk to me about his new book that should be coming out next year called The Alcohol Matrix. And he had some interesting ideas about the conscious and subconscious and how we have subconsciously been programmed to think that alcohol is okay. And it was an interesting conversation because we differed on a couple of points, mostly semantics. And I always enjoy hearing other people's perspectives on sobriety, on recovery, and on alcoholism. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Dr. Dustin Dunbar. What was one of the first experiences with alcohol or with behaving alcoholically in your life, whether it be through a parent or as a young person?
So, yeah, it goes back to growing up in the Midwest and with my father and grandfather. I'd always heard the stories of how my grandfather was basically like an Oklahoma bootlegger kind of guy, on the farm and whiskey and the whole deal and overalls. And his dad was like Oklahoma land run, and just whiskey was part of their, culture. And having come from Scotland, Ireland, England descent, and just that in general, you're a man if you can handle your drink, and you're not a man if you cannot. And so I remember hearing a lot of that stuff, deep in my unconscious mind, now looking back, and just being like, I got to be a man and be able to handle my drink and that kind of stuff growing up. My father definitely, didn't drink a lot until I was a little bit older. And then once he started, it was just full on. It just hit him really hard with the addiction. And so both my grandfather and father went into AA. They both got unaddicted to alcohol. Sober to me is a word that means you're boring, and so I try to stay away from the word sober. I say
Okay.
The person is not addicted to alcohol anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, the last thing that I am now is sober. I am excited, happy, joyous. I'm not boring at parties. I'm not downbeat or anything. Whenever you look up sober in the dictionary, it's this whole thing that's like basically boring. And
Right.
I'm like, yeah, that's not my life. That's not who I am at all. So I really stay away from that. And I also try to stay away from the word alcoholic. So I say once was addicted to alcohol, stuff like that, different language, different terms that
Sure.
I think the new approach is really leaning towards and helping people realize that once their unconscious mind and their conscious mind both come to an agreement that alcohol has zero benefit for you in any way, and actually has a negative benefit, negative effect, and kills everything it touches. Once people's unconscious mind and conscious minds both come into agreement, there's no more reason ever that somebody would ever drink alcohol. And so that's
Sure.
where I'm getting at. And it's so you're going to hear me talk a lot about the unconscious mind and the conscious mind today. So I even said it whenever I was a kid, it's seeping in at that point. But now that I'm fully awakened to what alcohol is, I also realize that the collective unconscious. So whenever you say, what's your first memories of alcohol in your childhood? Well, a big part of this book is going into the collective unconscious. So I get into where alcohol has been. We were born with a belief that alcohol is somehow good for us, and that is from the collective unconscious. So, for example, whenever a soldier is in, let's say, 10,000 BC, Asia, laying on a field with an arrow through his leg, and the only painkiller available at that time was, guess what? Alcohol. Okay. So, and readily available. they had herbs, they had things like that. But I'm talking about readily available on the battlefield. The only thing that was there was alcohol. So first they pour the alcohol on the leg, try to clean it and all that. Then they say, okay, here's a stick, bite on this. Here's some alcohol, drink the hell out of it, and we're going to pull this arrow out of your leg. So you can imagine the excruciating pain that goes into that. Well, with alcohol, yes, it does temporarily alleviate pain. Okay, we all know that, proven
Mm-hmm.
scientific fact. So if that's all that you have available at that time, and then for 10,000 years of human history, guess what we have as a painkiller that's readily available?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in our collective unconscious, we sit there and we go, okay, it's good for us. We have this deep unconscious belief, and 95% of our behaviors, emotions, actions are from the unconscious. It's a proven scientific fact. All, you know, neurologists, things like that, they all say, okay, yeah, we're 95, we're conscious of 5% of our actions. So if the unconscious mind is sitting there saying, you have a deep belief that alcohol is good for you in some way, it benefits you in some way, whether it be social, relaxation, uh, you know, pain from childhood traumas, uh, anything you can imagine, even physical pain. At the end of the day, you've been working, laying tile all day, whatever it is, that has been in our whole human history, what we've seen as a pain relief.
Mm-hmm.
And to finally, now that we're evolving out of that, and to see it as, wait a minute, there's so many other ways that we don't need this to alleviate pain, like this substance, this addictive substance, to alleviate pain. There's so many other ways, through meditation, yoga, all these other things, even pharmaceuticals that aren't addictive.
Right.
Okay, now there's obviously a lot of pain medicines out there that are addictive that we got to be careful of.
Yes.
uh, and yes, but your body will heal itself, is my point, if
Mm-hmm.
your conscious and unconscious mind are in agreement that outside substances, especially substances that are addictive,
So can
are
I,
bad.
yeah, can I ask you? So one of the things that's interesting to me is, and I read This Naked Mind with Annie
Mhm.
Grace,
Yeah.
and as somebody who I've been sober, or how, if like not addicted to alcohol for 5 years now, I don't have a problem with the word sober.
Right.
I don't have a problem calling myself an alcoholic.
Yep.
I went through AA. I went through, I mean, and I genuinely 100% believe that it saved my life in a way
Uh-huh.
that I don't think anything else could have.
Yes.
What I find interesting though, and when I read her book, there was at first I remember thinking like, hey, I felt a sting of pain, like, no, that's the thing that saved my life you're attacking. And then I said, well, calm down, John, it's okay. And I read the whole thing, and I found it really interesting. And the idea of the semantics is very important for some people.
Yes.
And so I like to have people on who have, because sobriety is varied, right? Recovery
Yep.
from alcohol is varied, and it takes what it takes for different people. And I don't believe that what got me sober is going to necessarily work for everyone, right? We know
Correct.
it doesn't.
Yes.
um but can you talk a little bit about like the importance of those words, and why those words don't work for you, alcoholic, sober?
Yeah. the for number one, it's alcoholism. We love the word alcoholic. It was shopaholic, chocoholic. We love all these words, that holic word, right? It's just a fun play on it. But when you really get down into the semantics of it, what you're saying is that person is that for life, right?
Hmm.
And so you say, oh, I am an alcoholic. Okay. Well, for me, I was addicted to alcohol. Okay. I am no longer addicted to alcohol. So I am not an alcoholic. It's a
Okay.
very, very big distinction, because I have no desire whatsoever to drink alcohol, and I never will, because my unconscious mind and my conscious mind know completely 100% agree that this is a poisonous, addictive substance that is very dangerous. and it's extremely dangerous, that we need to treat just like cigarettes. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that my uncle and I had two uncles, Uncle John and Uncle Gene, that both died, and that about the same time when I was young. And one of them died of cancer from smoking. Okay, one of them died from alcohol poisoning. Basically, his liver exploded from drinking too much. Okay, everybody at the time says that alcohol is, oh, poor John, he couldn't handle his alcohol. Well, the whole time I look back at that and I'm like, what about poor Gene that couldn't handle his cigarettes? We got to start looking at this as a addictive substance and not blaming the person who gets addicted for something that we're all saying, oh, it's so social, it's so fun. Hey, on your 21st birthday, let's go to celebrate and you can start drinking this addictive substance with us. Oh no, you're 30 years old, now you're addicted to it because you drank too much of it. Oh, you couldn't handle your alcohol. This has got to stop. We have to start really blaming the substance and treating it just like cigarettes. I'm not saying ban it like prohibition or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
like whatever. That doesn't work. And I'm saying we got to start looking at this substance like for what it is, which is extremely dangerous. My children, I do not want them growing up in a world where everything, like I just watched a Crown Royal Apple commercial with them, and it's on, and it's this beautiful golden bottle glistening and purple, and the sun's shining, and people are having the best times of their lives because of this elixir, this substance that looks amazing. And I'm like, and it's apple, and I'm like, of course my kids are like, wow, what's that, Dad? It looks like a Jolly Rancher. And I'm like, that is 35% alcohol in that thing. That is whiskey. That
Yeah.
it's poison. 35% of that's poison. Yeah, everything else in it's sugar, things like that. But what I'm saying is, we got to get to the point where we look at this and say, look, advertising needs to change tremendously, just like it has with cigarettes. And that's what I'm pushing in the book is like, look, you can't be just telling kids and stuff that it's okay to drink this all the time and let's go
Yeah.
celebrate and drink copious amounts of it, things like that. So, okay. So I always get off tangent. I get
That's
excited
fine.
about
That's
it.
fine. No problem. No problem.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a young man, as a kid, like when did you have your first drink, or what led you to that?
Yes. So everybody always says, oh, it was because the girl was drinking, or my boys were drinking. It's almost like social peer pressure, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I would have told you probably 10 years ago, whenever I wasn't awake out of this whole thing. And now what I'm telling you is because I had a deep unconscious belief that alcohol benefited me in some way. And that unconscious belief led me to sit there and go, okay, and the fact of the defective theory, that whenever I would go to my dad's and grandpa's AA meetings, the defective theory, they kept saying, well, they have this gene or this allergy, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'd sit there and I'd go, well, I think I can handle my alcohol. I don't think my grandfather and dad, it sounds like to me, they couldn't really handle it. And then I'd take my first beer and I'd say, I'm not going crazy. I think I'm okay. And then I take my second beer. I'm not going crazy. I think I'm okay. Sip, 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 drip, drip, drip with the poison, addictive poison. Once anybody consumes enough of this addictive
Mm-hmm.
substance, anybody can get addicted. So that's what I'm saying is that, yes, it was a deep unconscious belief that it actually benefited me some way, make me more popular, give me self-confidence, able to dance better. But I've
Mm-hmm.
seen the videos, and I definitely did not dance better on alcohol. So,
Sure. So
yeah.
in, I think some of the critiques of AA, I, I think there's some parts of the program that I see as problematic. You talk about defects, and for me, one of the things that, again, just to push back a little bit on what you're saying, the it allowed me to kind of see the other problems in my life. It helped me to clear my head, and it got me sober. And then
Yeah.
I said, hey, and when I was going through the steps with my sponsor, at one point he said, John, there are some things you may need to get professional help with that I will not be able to help you with. He was a very wise man. And so, he just basically said, there's other problems here that you need to address, and I can help you with this one. And so maybe, I don't know that necessarily my addiction to alcohol, you might say, is not the defect, it's the problem with the substance, but it allowed me to develop the tools to work on the other things in my
Absolutely.
life
I'm saying,
that
hey, if
needed
whatever works, this
repair.
isn't a competition.
Right.
We're kind of breaking up here on the screen and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So let me know if you can't hear me.
No, I can
Are you
still hear
there?
you. Yep. Yeah,
I
you're
think
just
I lost.
frozen, but oh, there
Yeah,
you are. Okay.
there we go. All right. So yeah, whatever works for people is amazing. That's great. However you got
Right.
sober, hey, best, awesome. Let's do it. Let's get on
Yes.
it. I don't care if it requires jumping off a building and breaking your arm to realize, when you had a drink of beer,
Hmm.
the pain of, I don't care what it is. If a
Right.
bee stung you whenever you had your first drink, I've heard of crazy stuff that people don't drink because a bee stung them whenever they were 7 years old and they had their first beer at the same time. Like, I'm like, we should do that with every kid. Like, so stuff like that. It doesn't matter. This isn't a competition
Right.
in what
No.
is the best way at all. What this is new science is coming out with brain scans back in 1935. Bill, in life is to find the cure for alcohol addiction. And they were using the best things that they could at the time. And they were saying, okay, it looks like a certain amount of people, whenever they drink, they absolutely become alcoholics, right? Stop. They just fall off the cliff pretty much immediately. And so what we're seeing now is just like any drug. Well, some people do that with, crack cocaine. Why does 50% of people immediately get hooked on crack whenever they smoke it for the first time? 50% don't. There's
Mm.
there's things going on inside, and a lot of it, what we're finding is with childhood trauma is a huge part of it. That too. But I'm not saying that everybody who's a drinker had child. That's just the facts are not there. It's like 63% is what they're saying of heavy drinkers have had childhood trauma. So it is a high majority of people who drink a lot and become addicted to alcohol have that. But what I am saying is that anybody who consumes enough of alcohol will
Yeah.
become addicted. And that
Yeah.
is an addictive substance, period.
Yeah.
So that's what we got to get the point across and just out there. And the defective theory, the problem with the defective theory that my grandpa and my dad had an allergy or a genetic problem inside them. The problem with that is what that teaches young children like myself that I went through is, well, how do I know if I'm defective or not unless I consume the substance? Okay.
Right.
So I started drinking it thinking, well, I don't think I have it, and saying, I hope I don't have it. But I was always like, maybe I do, maybe I don't, all this stuff. And now I'm realizing that everybody has to be extremely careful with this addictive substance. I want my children growing up knowing that this is a toxic, addictive substance that, yes, they have made it into thousands of years of working with it. They've
Mm-hmm.
made it into this, beautiful tasting thing. A lot of that, like with food, everybody's like, oh, I drink it because of the taste of the food. Well, it makes my food taste better. I'm talking about wine,
Yes.
and French wine, and the oakiness, the beautiful supple vanilla notes. You get into all this stuff, and that's thousands of years of working with this to perfect it, where it offsets and disguises the rotten fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol, ethanol is rotten fruit. That is where we get that. That's the buzz. That's the alcohol substance, ethanol. Rotten vegetables and rotten fruit. So I want my children to definitely know that you can't sit there and say that you or do not have an allergy or a gene that may or may not allow you to handle your alcohol. What you need to know 100% is that is an addictive substance. And if you drink a lot of it, you're going to get addicted and it's going to ruin your life. That's what I want my children to know. So be very careful with it. Smoke, go ahead, smoke cigarettes. You're 18, you're an adult, smoke cigarettes. But I want you to know on that package, even it says
Mm-hmm.
that this causes cancer. Well, beer, all this stuff, all these labels, there's only one label: pregnancy. If you're pregnant,
Right.
alcohol, don't drink alcohol. That is it.
You're like,
And
great,
I'm
I
like,
found
are
my
you kidding
brands.
me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Three, like, yeah, like, and it's because we have the society still has a deep, collective, unconscious belief that alcohol benefits us in some way. And until we get out there, like I'm trying to do right now, and say, scream from the tops of the mountains, just like cigarettes, we gotta we gotta get rid of treating this as life's elixir, life's
Right.
big, golden apple stuff. Whenever 35% of it, guess what that is? you know,
Yeah.
it's a killer.
It
Yeah,
really is. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we've talked about it on the podcast about the level of marketing and advertising that goes into it. I was a bartender for 15 years,
yeah,
and I mean, all the shiny pretty bottles
uh,
and all the stories behind it, and I mean, that was part of it. That's how I made my living for a very long time, was promoting it and being excited about it and talking about it, and oh, what's the new hot thing, and what's
yeah,
the oldest thing, and all this stuff. And so the
yes.
marketing is, you're right, it's awful. And because it's not truthful. And you're right, I agree that you want to go ahead and drink, go ahead and drink. Like, I would not
Right,
admonish you, and nor do I believe in prohibition in any way, because
right.
as we know, we've tried it, it
Yeah,
doesn't work.
doesn't work. That's great. That's fine.
um
Yeah.
So did you did you begin like drinking, in high school, or like what
Yeah,
age?
yeah.
Did you-
It was high school. I had older brothers and sisters, and uh, they drank, and so they, and then the whole town pretty much. I mean, Oklahoma is where it was, and I
Mhm.
mean, there, the whole keggers out in the oil fields and that kind of thing. And so yeah, it was a lot of the beer stuff, and then of course somebody would bring some stupid thing like Mad Dog 2020 out or something like that. All that stuff comes out whenever the cheapest Boone's
Yep.
Farm, whatever, and all that. And so yeah, you just start in high school, and then throughout college, I played basketball in college, and so that sports really helped me stay away from it a
Mhm.
lot, because I'd be like, no, I got to play a game and this and that, and like training, whatever. Um, but once sports were over, I was like, hey, it's party time, and why not? And felt like I could handle my drinks and stuff like that. So, but I always, in the back of my head, I was always like, this stuff is dangerous. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
it's it's always been that bug, and from family descent and everything like that, and just seeing people in general, you look back and you're like, were they really having fun? And when did I have the most joy in my life? And the most joy was when not drinking. It was from things like athletics or social events where there wasn't alcohol involved,
Mhm.
and it was real.
Yeah.
There was real relationships. It wasn't people trying to hide, from being insecure, and stuff like that. So yeah, so definitely yes. The answer is high school.
um and so and I read a little bit, I read what you sent me, the first chapter and the synopsis. You talk about traveling the world, and living the life, and just and really buying into that, even though you say, in the back of my mind, I know this doesn't feel right, because certainly I was the same way. It never stopped me from drinking anyway, because I was hooked. um
Yeah.
and you go on, and can you talk a little bit about the supposed highlights of this time drinking and living this wonderful life, or supposedly thinking you were?
Yeah, I was working on my master's degree in California, and also bartending on the beach as yourself, doing the
Mhm.
bartender job. And while I was bartending and working on my master's degree, part of my master's degree, it was a meditation program. And so we had to meditate for class, and it was like 2 hours a day. And, so
Wow.
I was doing that, and I was bartending, And I would go in after meditating that much and go bartending, and then I would have all these drunks that I'm serving, and I was just grossed out by the whole. I was just like, what is it like? And working,
Yeah.
I wanted to be with it and not drink, and so I didn't drink for a year while I was doing that. And I was probably 23, 24. Got in great shape. I was surfing, and then a guy from Ford Models comes up and says, "Hey, do you want to go and model in Italy and do underwear modeling and all this, stuff?" And I'm like, sounds kind of fun.
Right.
I mean, I got nothing else going on. So I packed up and found myself in Milan, Italy, and I'm surrounded by Victoria's Secret models at a party. Whenever I first get there, it's when Versace was just killed, and so they had this huge party for Johnny. And I just remember being there and going, man, I'm only 2 years removed from being an Okie, and just being like kind of not really knowing the world and stuff like that, and just standing there with these gorgeous women, high heels, they're towering over me, and being like, this is incredible. And one of them hands me a martini, and I just remember this really in specifically because I hadn't had a drink in over a year, and I have it, and I'm like, why am I doing this kind of thing? But she's doing it, I'm doing it. It was just that moment
Sure.
of, okay, everybody else is doing it, let's go. And so we start having the martini, have the one, and then just next day I remember feeling terrible, all this stuff. But I'm like, well, I went in and started drinking here. I'm not meditating anymore as well. So that's a big part of it too. I stopped meditating when I was over there. The class was over, and started having wine dinners, and just sipping on Italian wine. And from there, it just kept getting progressively more and more and more. And not doing crazy like blacking out shots and things like that, which Americans are known for. In Italy, that's like, why would you do a shot of alcohol? They don't
So
do shots.
yeah, so I lived with, well, he stayed with us, but there was a gentleman, and this is years ago, from Italy, Francesco, and he lived with us for about 4 months, and we'd go out drinking together, and all of us would get hammered, wasted. And he's like, what are you guys doing? Americans are so weird. We sit and if I had like one little glass of something, I would sip on it. And we would be, staying up until 3 or 4 in the morning, sipping our drinks, our grappa
Yeah,
or whatever. And
right.
you guys are just getting hammered and passing out at like 10:30 at night. You're drinking so much.
Yeah,
So it was totally totally disconnected to
yeah.
anything.
I've spent a lot of time in Italy, and
Uh-huh.
they have a very slow pace over there of life in general. And we have this work ethic over here, like, you got to make money, you got to, you have 2 days off on the weekends, and then you're going to work 40 to 60 hours throughout the week,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have 2 weeks of vacation throughout the year period. They have a whole month off called
Mm.
Ferragosto, which is August. The whole month of August off. Their weekends are off. They don't have a lot of credit card debt. It's a whole different, slower pace. And of course, they've been drinking wine and stuff like that forever, so it's much more refined kind of thing. And yeah, so it's not about, for them, for sure, the whole just getting wasted. I mean, yeah, there were some teenagers and stuff running
Sure.
around doing, but in general, yeah, totally different aspect. And it kind of goes to my point about cigarettes, right? How we're now doing, we're okay, cigarette a month or something like that. You know, it's and we're like, okay, that's but if you sit there and smoke cigarettes over and over and over, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get addicted. You're going to get cancer. We all know this now. So we're all like, to our kids, we're like, yuck, that's disgusting. That's gross. What are you
Yeah.
doing? You can't be doing this. This is a very toxic substance. Well, alcohol has been deemed a carcinogen since 1987. Okay. Why aren't we it cigarettes a carcinogen, the same thing that causes cancer? So the point is, like, that I feel like in Europe they do a better job of treating alcohol with respect, than pounding shots and saying,
Yeah.
oh, it's so fun and this and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay. And so as you are modeling underwear in Milan, and you begin to drink again and fairly heavily.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, in Italy, like I said, it wasn't heavily considered,
Okay.
because couple glasses of wine a night,
Okay.
dinner, that kind of thing. It was a progressive increase, and it just that we've seen over and over and over, that
Mhm.
the more you consume, the more you need to get the high, the more alcohol tolerant you become,
Mhm.
and you're like, oh well, one glass didn't really give me that, didn't erase my childhood trauma so well.
Yeah.
So how about
Yeah.
another glass to erase my childhood trauma? Uh,
Mhm.
so now there it is. The childhood trauma's gone for a good, what, 20 minutes. and then
Mhm.
and then now here comes the dehydration. Here comes the hangover. Here comes the yelling and screaming and just all the negative
Crying.
benefits,
Mhm.
the temporary, I don't even call it a high, the temporary dulling of the senses. People call it a high. You get they say an alcohol, you get a high. I'm like, me, alcohol deadens everything. It doesn't make you high. Well, you it erases it. It literally blanks that out, and so that is not a high to me. That's your brain cutting down, and so like
Right.
shutting down and saying, oh, it's not there anymore. So which is very different from some sort of energetic, like endorphins firing high. So yeah.
So you're living this high life, so to speak, and this goes on for a while. What is the moment? Now you say you grew up and you had this notion that alcohol was bad, right? So,
Yeah.
and I think some of us have that too growing up, and we see our parents or our grandparents drinking and we're like, yeah, that doesn't seem right. And I remember thinking that, even in as a young early high school, like, yeah, this is not bad, until I started getting drunk. But but did you have a moment of clarity? Did you have a rock bottom of sorts? Was there one singular moment where the epiphany of, like, oh, this thing that I have always had in the back of my mind is what's true, and I need to I need to focus on this rather than the drinking.
you know so yeah, so after the whole, I mean, we're talking about a long time of progressively the poison dripping in and the addictiveness dripping in. There wasn't a moment of like me waking up, you know in jail or
Right.
something like that, or a DUI, or some kind of thing like that. It was a progressive awakening of reading a lot of different stuff that's out there. Annie Grace,
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Beck, Catherine Gray. There's a lot of these new authors that are awakened, and their unconscious mind is meets and agrees with their conscious mind 100% that alcohol has zero benefit. And
Mm-hmm.
so those people reading that had triggered it a lot. And then just with my background, like you're saying, with when you're a young child, uh, your mind, as a young child that drinking is bad for you. You just do. Every child can see it, and they've been around uncles who smell like crap, that have
Mm-hmm.
alcohol in their breath, and they've seen mom whenever she drinks too much
Yeah.
Chardonnay, slurring and like just treating them not good. Children have an innate ability to know if somebody is not nice at that time and good, and they just do. And so now it's so funny because I've got young children, and their friends before didn't really hang around me, whatever. Now I can't get rid of the kids. They're all over me. I'm like the best friend, like I'm
Mhm.
like in it with them. I'm playing with them. I'm like happy. I'm a kid again. And this joyous inner child that they know, they gravitate to. So for me, growing up, it's that cognitive dissonance of, yes, we know inside ourselves, our 12-year-old inside who never had a drink, that self knows that alcohol is very bad for us. Whenever we start getting older, that unconscious mind, that adult mind sitting there going, wait a minute, everybody's telling me to do this. I'm getting older now. I'm 21. Let's try it out. I've heard about it for my whole life and seen it. It's in my
Mhm.
face every day. Advertising, teenagers talking about it. Hey, let's do this. Let's party, whatever. Let's try it out. Well, now, and maybe I can handle it. Maybe I can. Maybe I'm not like I'm saying Uncle John, Grandpa, Dad,
Mhm.
all these people. And that's what this whole thing is about, is we got to get out there that no one can handle it. Don't think if you're a child, a teenager, whatever, you can't think like I did that maybe I can handle it. You cannot handle alcohol. Nobody can. It is a very poisonous, addictive substance that will ruin your life. And so, yeah, there wasn't really a moment for me.
Okay.
It was an awakening. Yeah, it was an educational, like, unconscious mind, like literally laying in my bed in Hawaii, and like bright white light type awakening, where I was just like, I saw the whole past of human history, alcohol, 15,000 years of it alleviating pain temporarily, and it being the only substance on this earth readily available to alleviate pain temporarily. And that build up of all those years, and that collective unconscious being born into this world, this earth where we're physical bodies, and it hurts. It hurts to be a
Yeah.
physical body. There's pain. It
Yeah.
hurts to have childhood trauma. It's a painful thing, and pain teaches us great things. Pain is the best teacher that there is out there. Once you have that, you're
Hmm.
like, and once you have enough, that's where, like, rock bottom. What is rock
Hmm.
bottom? It's enough pain has accumulated to where you go, wait a minute, this freaking hurts, and I gotta do something about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it was painful. Believe me, I started. My hangovers were horrible. Uh, I was treating my kids bad. I was treating my spouse bad. I was becoming my father. I was becoming, you know, my father beat up my mom. That's where the childhood trauma that I keep talking about.
Hmm.
Um, he's dragging her out by her hair in my front yard, and the four kids are sitting in the car, and he brings her out by her hair on the ground, and shoves her into the car, and looks into the car at us four kids who are ages probably 6 to 16. And I could just see in his eyes that he wasn't there. It was not my father. Alcohol had taken over, completely consumed him. And that is where I'm like, okay, I do not blame my father. I blame alcohol. Alcohol is the problem. We have to start putting the blame on alcohol. We do not blame Uncle Gene whenever he smoked all those cigarettes and got cancer. We blamed the cigarettes. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
We
You're right.
we sit there and we go, "Oh man, it wasn't his fault. It was the cigarettes' fault." We don't do that with alcohol. We sit there and we go, "Oh, poor he can't handle his alcohol." That's not. It's an addictive substance.
Hmm.
We gotta get that away, and that's the point of this.
Yeah, I think too, you brought up childhood trauma multiple times, and it is something that for me at 43, I still have I still struggle with it daily.
Yeah.
And alcohol was so much of I don't, the childhood trauma didn't cause my alcoholism, but it certainly exacerbated it, and it made the desire for even the temporary relief of pain so strong. And it's only been in the last 2 years. So if I've been sober for five, I mean, three of those were still very, very difficult, that I've been able to kind of process things with my father a little bit.
Mhm.
And it's been, and I've more people that I talk to, like, this is something that I hear a lot, is that
Yeah,
there is
of
things
course.
that happen when they're kids, and it doesn't have to be physical abuse,
Right.
mental, emotional, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's been something that if I had not gotten treatment for it, if I had not talked to somebody, if I had not journaled through it, if I had not processed it, if I had not, um, I am certain that I would have fallen back into drinking at some point, And
Mhm.
so it's such an important thing that like you said, to clear the fog, to get the alcohol out of our system, so that, you know, that we that we can even begin to look at the other things, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
as a as a psychologist, I mean, I'm sure you understand. I mean, obviously, it's alcohol is a huge problem, right? But in the scope of human
Yeah. Yeah.
emotions, I mean, there's so many other things that alcohol gets in the way of, and masks and covers up, and, you know, it's
Yeah, it's that whole temporary Band-Aid thing. I mean, what you're doing is temporarily relieving
mhm,
pain. Every
mhm,
time you're drinking, there's a you're trying to make yourself feel better. You're self-medicating.
right.
Okay. So do you think that drinking more of this is going to cure you from your
Mhm,
childhood trauma? Because that this substance, this addictive substance that causes cancer, is that really what you're thinking here? Because that that's not a good thought, and
mhm,
it's not going to happen. I can assure you that drinking more alcohol is not going to alleviate the pain of anything except temporarily. It'll do it and then you're going to wake up and guess what, that childhood trauma is still there, and it's getting worse because you're adding fuel to the fire. You know,
mhm,
drinking alcohol, you've probably heard this, it's like for anxiety relief or anything like that, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. To, you know,
mhm,
you're making it worse, and it's going to create more problems, more pain, and that's the whole point. So yeah, childhood trauma, I mean, you're not going to get many places and cure that, and really get through that if you're drinking. It's not going to happen.
yeah, I had my friend, my co-host on the podcast, my best friend, you know, he talks about he was going to try and see a therapist while he was drinking. And the therapist, basically, they had a conversation. It was sort of a introduction, and the therapist said, "Here, I'm giving you your money back. We can't do anything until you stop drinking. I can't help
Exactly.
you."
Yeah.
And that was one of the things where he's like, "Oh shit, I if I continue to drink, I'm beyond help." Um, and which is not to say, if somebody's listening to this and they're still drinking, there is help,
Yes.
many ways to do that. But that was the thing that he realized, oh, all of the other problems in my life, I can't even reach them until I beat this one with alcohol, the problem I have
Yeah.
with alcohol.
That
And
I just want to give an awesome shout out to that therapist because it, you know, that's amazing. I need his number.
yeah, right.
So yeah, that's
um
awesome because yeah, and but like I would like to reiterate that, you know, you can work on things while you're drinking, of course, and
mhm,
especially while you're de-escalating, and while your unconscious
sure.
mind is that 95% that's causing you to drink. Your conscious mind knows that it's not good to drink. Okay, that 5% knows it's absolutely not good to drink, and you're sitting there going, it's like same thing, you know, with but guess what? 95% of your mind is telling you there's a benefit of drinking. So while you're working on, you know, reading books and getting that unconscious mind to agree that there is
Mhm,
no benefit and it is an addictive substance and it is causing cancer and
mhm,
deaths everywhere, um, family abuse, spousal abuse, loss of jobs, all these things, then once you realize that's, but during that time, please, you know, keep working on your childhood trauma as well. But yeah, he's right. You gotta work on that one thing. Get that. You know, if you're drinking heavily, then it's very unlikely that you're gonna do anything with your childhood trauma.
So I don't. I know that it's a bigger. This may be a bit of a reductive question, but how does how do I get my unconscious mind to be in agreement with my conscious mind? What are some of the steps or processes that I can take to help get me out of that feeling that
Yeah.
alcohol is good for me in some way?
Uh, Number one, listening to what I'm saying, things like
Okay.
that. Like what I'm sitting here doing is talking shit on alcohol, and there,
Hmm.
there has been so much glorifying of alcohol that in your whole life, and you're, like I'm saying, you're born into this world where you had this human unconscious belief that alcohol benefited you and kills pain and makes you happier and does all these things. What I'm saying is you got to start reading and listening and doing things like this to where your brain starts really understanding, wait a minute, that whole time when I was a kid, I didn't need alcohol and I thought it was bad whenever I saw other people drinking a lot of it and stuff. That was the truth. The truth is that you are not the problem. Alcohol is the problem. You
Yeah.
got reading, keep listening,
Yeah.
meditating, praying, looking deep inside yourself and asking yourself, what is the truth? Is the truth? Does alcohol? I ask this in groups a lot of times. I say, okay, I want everybody to raise their hand. Who has seen somebody really benefit from drinking alcohol? And I'm not talking about people selling it. I'm not talking about people in the alcohol industry. I'm talking about in their lives by drinking alcohol and consuming it day in, day out, over and over and over. How many people here have really seen a benefit to doing that? Okay. And then very few people, so, whatever. Okay. Now I want you to all raise your hands. Who has seen somebody who has lost everything from alcohol? Literally, maybe even their lives, like died from alcohol, or lost their jobs, lost their family, lost their money. And everybody's like, absolutely yes. 100% every time somebody knows somebody, even if it's not themselves, usually it's themselves, who it had completely killed everything. And that's what
Yeah.
alcohol is good for. It's an antiseptic. It wipes away germs. It kills everything that it touches. So by consuming this poison that kills everything it touches, ethanol, it's good for running cars and cleaning things. That's what it's good
Right.
for. Okay. And yeah, temporary relieving pain. Hey, if you're on the battlefield and you got an arrow or a gun wound and all you got there is a bottle of whiskey, go for it.
Right.
Kill the pain, get
To
through
get,
it, go for it. But that's all it's good for. That is
yeah.
it. And then everything after that, you got to treat it with so much respect. You have to see it as cigarettes, just exact same thing as cigarettes. Keep going back to that and going, okay, how many cigarettes would I have tonight? Would I have one? Would I have two? That's the same thing. How many drinks should I have tonight? One, two. It's the same thing. So that's what we're trying to get at.
Yeah, you talk to meditation and also prayer. And I know that for me in the 12-step program, having spiritual practices is really vital and important. And more, what I hear from you is the not only the science of it, of what alcohol is versus, what cigarettes are, but you talk about the unconscious mind. And so how does prayer work in your program?
Yeah. So it's for me, it's really, you got to get inside yourself to be able to live outside. And if your mind is what's called cognitive dissonance, if your mind is split, that's a fancy word for basically one side of your mind is thinking one thing, one side of your mind is thinking the other. Oh, I want chocolate tonight. Deep inside, I really would like to have this chocolate. The other side of the mind's like, no, I shouldn't have this because I'm on a diet. Okay, I'm trying to lose weight. Anything like that, where it's just there's a dissonance, there's a disconnect. That is what prayer, meditation, all will do for you, is enable you to connect up with the unconscious, and that your conscious mind and your unconscious mind will start agreeing with each other, and you will become closer to your true being, true to God, to whatever you want to call it, to that pure essence that is within you. And once you're connected to that, what you are, people get all crazy about saying God and
Sure.
being and all these things. But whatever, I truly believe that there is a true essence in you, soul, energy, that is pure joy, pure love, and is this eternalness of, and once you tap into that power, uh, you will be able to agree both sides that why would I drink this substance,
Mm-hmm.
this addictive uh, substance, whenever I'm in complete, total agreement that it's horrible for me, and it's horrible if you drink a lot of it. Uh, so and it just that's where the science and being and God and energy and spirituality can meet up is to get that connected.
Yeah, I think too, I know for me, the God was a big issue, and trying to understand it. And one
Mhm.
of the things that came to me that helped me was I read somewhere, and I think it was actually the comedian Pete Holmes who wrote a book called God or Comedy Sex God or something like that. And in it, he talks about God as a metaphor. And it's a metaphor because we don't know what it is. So we just use this word, and it kind of came to me that, oh, this is just a word. It's a placeholder so that somebody like you and I can have a conversation. And then we can go, that thing that's inside of you that you believe, and that thing that's inside of me that I believe, that um, in many ways, I can't completely explain it to you. I just use the word God. And
Mhm.
I found that to be extraordinarily helpful in doing my best to bring my unconscious and my conscious together. And prayer is it's a hard thing to do, let alone understand for a lot of people, myself
Yeah.
included. It took me a very long time, and now part of my prayer work is I write one down every single day. So I have like every single day in the journal. That's how I start it, is with what do I pray for? Who do
Mhm.
I pray for? And that really kind of help sets kind of the intention of the day of what I want to see, and if it's something far away or if it's something close to my heart. But I think it's, even from a scientific standpoint, there is a certain level of spiritual connection that is important to me in continuing to not drink, you know?
Yes. Yeah. If you being an individual and thinking you're separate from everybody else, like I believe that I am you and you are me,
Mm-hmm.
literally, and so it helps me connect with you and be part of you and have
Yeah.
empathy for you, have compassion, uh, and then you're outside of yourself. If you're just an individual and you're alone and you're walking around in the world and you have this belief that you're separate from everything, that's a hard, painful life. That is
Yeah.
like you are it, and that's that connectedness. Like I think you're setting the intention for the day. That's that the prayer is it's a very positive thinking. Your intentions are positive thinking, and they're saying I want this person to be healthy or want to help, and it's just it sets that
Mm-hmm.
beautiful positivity out there, and versus negativity of like, oh no, another day, waking up hungover, gotta go now, I gotta go to work, gotta do it all over again. Maybe if I can just get through this,
Yeah.
I'll get another drink. If I can just
Mm-hmm.
get through. So to wake up and do that, I think things like that are incredibly powerful for setting the day and
Yeah.
making that unconscious mind that can have some negative thoughts coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the alcohol matrix, and that's that unconscious mind that comes up and it tries to deceive you, and it tries to say you need alcohol to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol is good. Alcohol benefits you. Alcohol, uh, these are all things that it kills. It'll help you with all your pain. It'll take it away, and it's nothing but complete false monster that's inside of you that you have to see it for what it is. And until you're able to get into that alcohol matrix and defeat that unconscious monster, there's going to be issues.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about the book. And is that the alcohol matrix? Is that
Hmm.
yeah. And then I think we had scheduled this conversation back in March, and when is the book coming out? I mean, originally you were going to send me a copy and
Yeah.
read it, and we did. It just the world kind of stopped,
Big
this
time.
year.
So
But
yeah, and I have become super Mr. Mom where I am and everything because I've got young children. So
hmm
as anybody knows right now who's working from home, homeschooling, I mean, it's just a complete nightmare of like stress and anxiety. And, you're like, oh God, you're pulled in 17 different directions all the time. Your mind is scattered. So with that being said, there's been a little pause on the writing and
sure,
just getting it done. And I want to do it right where I'm in the right mindset. And I also want to be there for my children right now. So yeah,
yeah,
there's been a little bit of a pause on the writing, but anytime I get a chance, usually early mornings, 5, 6
right,
a.m. and everything's quiet.
nice,
I can get some writing done. But it's nothing like, used to whenever I started it, I was writing throughout the day while they were at school. But yeah, that's
right. That's not the case anymore.
no. No.
Um, so two quick questions before we go. One, is there anything that you still struggle with around alcohol?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that question. Because you always want to, like think, how can I get better? What is it
hmm
that I can do better? And that once your unconscious and conscious mind are 100% in agreement that alcohol is bad for you, there's nothing left with that, right? So like a lot of people say, oh, will you ever drink again? I'm like, that's a bullshit question. Because the future doesn't exist and it never will. We're never going to get to the future. And so we put
Good
all
point.
this fear and anxiety and stuff on these future questions that you don't know the future. I don't know the future. Nobody has a crystal ball of anything, right? So that
hmm
get the anxiety of that question. Nope. Just stop asking future questions like that. It's don't even ask it in your head. If that comes up in your head, just know that it's a bullshit question. Period. And get it and say that is don't ask yourself that. Stay in the present moment and be present with that day. Nobody's going to strap you down and make you drink alcohol. A lot of people have fear, going forward of like going to parties, things like that, and being able to be in social situations with alcohol once they first quit. It was a
hmm
big thing for me once I first quit. I was like, how do I do this? And what do I tell people? What do I say? All these things like, oh my gosh, and just all this fear of like future events. And then when I'm actually there in the moment, present, I have no problem whatsoever. So I'll talk to anybody about anything about it, and I'll talk shit on alcohol right there in front of everybody, like, and just let them have it. Like if they ask me, and I don't care because I'm being present and I'm being myself at that time. But so that's a big thing of like that I did have issue with was forward thinking, future
hmm
thinking. Now I don't have that issue. Now my big issue that I have with alcohol is what I'm doing right now is having the energy and finding the energy and time to get out there and to be an advocate to help other people and push this uh, information out there to that's what is a deep desire and concern of mine.
hmm
I have plenty of money. I don't need to do this. I'm very successful now with money and everything. So I don't need to sell books. I don't need anything like that. It's just that. So that's my problem with alcohol now, is that I gotta get out there. I feel this really deep desire to get out there and go against it, and say, look, stop with the lie. It's basically not lie. I don't like call it lies. I call it stop with the unconscious behavior is what it is. Where
Yeah.
the majority of adults with alcohol are unconscious, and we've got to bring this into the conscious with the same way we did cigarettes,
Yeah.
exact same way.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then just my last question is to anybody who's listening to this, who struggling with alcohol, um, what's like one simple thing that I can do today to help me with that connecting my conscious and unconscious?
Uh, so most people I ask them, do you think about the past? Where is your mind? Do you think about whenever and you have this incessant thing going on that 99.9% of humans do. Are you a past thinker, and are you thinking about the past right now, or are you a future thinker? What is it that you're thinking about? And then once they say, oh, I think about the future mostly, like I'm worried about it, or they're like, oh man, the past is, then I say, okay, what I want you to do is really focus on being present right now, looking around your room, being with your fingers, feeling yourself in your present moment. Try your best to really disconnect from that thinking of past, because that, if you can stay present in life, that is where the key is.
Yeah.
If you're having fear and anxiety about the future, it's that's made up stuff that's going on in your head. Nobody knows the future. It's not here. You have no idea. We could all die right now. Which I was part of that. I was part of that in Hawaii. The nuclear bomb. I don't know if you ever heard about this, but it was about a year ago.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, a nuclear warhead is headed towards Waikiki. That's where I live now. And I'm just like, okay, you don't know. That's my whole point of it was 38 minutes of sitting there with my 3-year-old in my arms. My wife had my other child, and huddling in my car saying, that's it. It's, this nuclear warhead's coming at us, and I got to prepare for that to be the end. So we don't know. So these other things that we're trivializing and thinking about, of like, how do we go to a party and explain to people we no longer drink, who we've drank around, all this stuff. Just be present at that time, and they will see your presence, and they will know that you don't need to explain yourself.
Yeah.
And yourself, you don't need to say a word.
Right.
If you want to say something, tell them.
Sure.
Because it makes me feel better. A good one on that. Anytime somebody does say it, and I'm at a social event now, I just say, because I feel a lot better when I don't drink. That's all I say. I just feel a lot better when I don't drink. Why aren't you drinking? I just feel a lot better when I don't drink. And that really helps for beginning.
Yeah.
People. Yeah.
I always, with people, if I'm out and then somebody offers me a drink, I say, oh, I'm not drinking tonight.
Yeah. Tonight. Exactly. And people think, oh, he's on a month sober thing or something, like whatever. Who cares what they think now? But whenever you're beginning, it's a very difficult.
Yeah.
It's like inside, you're like, what do I say to my best friends and then they're going to press you that they're drinkers with you and all that stuff. Just tell them you feel a lot better when you don't drink, and you're trying to not do that anymore. And then keep working on that unconscious belief that it benefits you in any way.
Yeah. Cool.
Because I can assure you it does not.
No. And so if listeners want to get in contact with you, is there a place? Do you have social media, or?
Yeah, I've really always shied away from social media. I am not a social media guy. But now that I'm doing this, and I got to get in there and start doing it for sure. But yeah, so we'll get that going soon whenever the book is released. But Alcohol Matrix is what the book is called, and we'll get it out there for sure soon.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Doctor, and your insights. And it's always good for me to have a conversation with another person, sobriety, recovery, alcohol addiction, whatever you want to call it. Or I go like, it doesn't really jibe with my exact experience, but I think it's important for me to hear other people's, you know what I mean? Like, it's more, I'm always interested in how other people achieve, a better life without alcohol. So awesome.
Hey, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This was wonderful talking to you.
Good, you too. All right, take care.
All right, take care.
Bye. Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.